All right, good afternoon. We will go ahead and get things kicked off on this Monday afternoon. We are so used to meeting on Friday afternoon, so happy Monday. Glad to see you. Today is a big day in state budget world in Ohio. Today will be conference committee after a few false starts and a few just long days of waiting around, I would say, here in state budget world and legislature. It's going to happen, hopefully. I mean, who really knows? Let's be honest. But my best intel is telling me that we will start any moment. So noon was the target time for today. So wanted to give you a heads up. We will not be here for the full hour. We are just going to quickly kind of review what's in that Senate passed bill that will be up and being considered for conference here later today. What we want in, what we want out, and really kind of what the process is going to look like moving forward. And once again, my friends, as we begin to close down this budget webinar series, my name is Kelsey Bergfeld. I'm the Director of Advocates for Ohio's Future, and thank you as always for coming along for the ride. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So what's happening today, just for a quick kind of policy and process review, is called conference committee. So this is where 3 members of the House as well as 3 members of the Senate have been kind of duking it out along with leadership in both chambers to talk about the changes that can be found between kind of the 3 different versions of the budget that's been passed over the last 5 months. The executive, so the governor's and the administration's version of the budget, the House passed version, and then the Senate passed version. So during conference, they have gone through kind of each of the provisions where those differences lie, and we will see momentarily, hopefully not too much later today, what those changes will be and what really version they decide upon. So this is the document that they will be working from today. It's called the comparison document. So it's kind of an interesting document, kind of split into 3 different columns. Again, executive pass version, House pass version, and then Senate pass version. So really this, the link that's provided here on the screen, and we could also probably put that in the chat. Sarah, our wonderful policy assistant, this will take you to that document that they're going to be walking through during conference committee. I will say, with my experience, I have been a legislative aide of a ranking member on finance. So really sat up there in the dais, kind of walk through these 3 different versions of the budget. And really they will kind of walk through and just go provision by provision, you know, House, Senate, executive, and we move forward. I will say probably 99% of the decisions that would be made will be made before they enter that room this afternoon. So there's really not much room for discussion. And it's really kind of just letting us know what they've decided upon between the House and Senate, as well as we do know the governor has been a member and has been an active participant in these conversations and these negotiations over the past few weeks. So we will see what they've come up with. And as always, remember that that link provided in the chat, thanks so much, Sarah, and on the screen will get you direct access to that document that they will be working from. So a couple other provisions that Advocates for Ohio's Future and a lot of our partners will be paying attention to during these proceedings. So we have, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, what we want in, what we want out, and really what should certainly be considered further, maybe in a standalone bill later on during the legislative session. But 3 of the major provisions that we are paying attention to over the next, again, couple days here will be the expansion of Medicaid coverage for postpartum mothers a full 12 months after birth. So this is an extension of coverage to those women who are between 139% of the federal income poverty level up to 199%. So right now those mothers are not covered for Medicaid 12 months postpartum. They're only covered, I believe 60 days after birth, which we know in order to increase, really healthy, strong moms and healthy babies throughout after birth, we want to make sure that they have the best healthcare possible. So this extension is really fantastic. Happy to see that included in the Senate version. We hope it stays through the end. Also, we saw an increased eligibility for publicly funded childcare up to 142% of the federal poverty level. Right now, it's at 130% of that federal poverty level. So this is a good jump. Again, making sure that those families have the support that they need to ensure that their child is in a safe, quality environment while they can, try to continue to return back to work and really stabilize families. Also happy to see that the Elderly Simplified Application Project, so this is for SNAP recipients, this is for our seniors on SNAP, that, we often see that their income levels kind of stay pretty stagnant, once you reach retirement, once you reach later in age. So making sure that those seniors will only have to apply for SNAP every 3 years, rather than every year, kind of cuts down on that paperwork and really ensures that those seniors who need that extra food support can stay on the program without the administrative burden of continuing to apply. So we are hoping that those 3 provisions stay in, make it through the end of the line here, through conference committee, and as well as for the governor's consideration moving forward in the next few days. So that's the good. The bad. So unfortunately, we have seen a number of provisions that were included in the Senate passed version. So that means the executive and the governor didn't have anything to do with it, or the House. So these are provisions that we would like to see removed completely from the conference report, which means that they go with either House or Senate, or House or executive version when they go through these provisions later today, just removed completely from the conference report, either to be considered later or just maybe like forgotten about. That's would be best case scenario in our opinion, but these are the provisions that we would like to see go away completely. The Medicaid Managed Care Organization procurement provisions that effectively derails and stops the procurement process at the state of Ohio. We know that this has been a very long and involved process that the Department of Medicaid has undertaken over the past 2 years to really garner feedback from providers, from Medicaid patients about what was working and what was not working in the current Medicaid program and managed care process. The Department of Medicaid took that feedback, came up with brand new contracts that really pay greater attention to care coordination, better attention to social determinants of health, really trying to increase and make sure we have robust and positive healthcare outcomes from our state Medicaid program. Also kind of broke up the program a little bit and introduced a new provision called Ohio Rise to pay special attention to and make sure that families who have youth that have kind of really complex medical and behavioral health needs have what they need to meet those needs, as well as ensure that the practice of custody relinquishment is done away with in the state of Ohio. Unfortunately, some parents and families with youth who have, again, those serious and complex behavioral and healthcare needs are separated from their families legally in order to get the care that they need and the services they need. We want to make sure that through the Ohio Rise program, that does not happen anymore. And that will impact about 60,000 families in the state of Ohio. So if this provision as inserted into the budget stays, it will stop and derail that entire process and delay, if not for months, for years. And at least from advocates for Ohio's future or viewpoint, patients don't deserve to wait. They deserve better care now. So we're hoping that provision is removed from conference report, and then eventually, if it does stay, would earn a veto from Governor DeWine. Also, the changes to SNAP eligibility, these are those Senate Bill 17 provisions that we've been talking to you for a few months now. They were snuck into the budget again at the very last second. These are provisions that would institute change reporting, really punishing working workers who, their income may fluctuate on a weekly basis, even though they stay below the eligibility level for SNAP, would really kind of increase those administrative burdens on those SNAP recipients, would also institute asset tests. You may have seen some news about those recently, making sure that, unfortunately, families or SNAP recipients who have a car and savings kind of totaling just under $7,000, or really kind of any savings in the bank over $2,250 would not qualify for SNAP. We know that that really goes against the ideas of kind of building a benefit bridge and making sure that folks kind of have that stability, those supports they need as they stabilize their situation. But when we force families or individuals to sell their car, their only transportation mode for work, in order to have those benefits, it certainly seems counterproductive. So we would like to see that those completely removed from the conference report, and of course, earn a veto from Governor DeWine if they remain. We also saw a big change in the step up to quality ratings and kind of process for publicly funded childcare in the state of Ohio. Really, the Senate decided to remove kind of all those next step incentives for childcare providers who take publicly funded childcare children into their programs from really incentivizing reaching any of those new quality standards. So that would kind of derail all the progress that's been made. And unfortunately, our friends at Groundwork Ohio would agree kind of create a two-tier system of publicly funded childcare in the state of Ohio, and it really increased those disparities that children unfortunately experience in different programs from different parts of the state who would like to adhere to these quality standards or not. So would like to see that completely removed as well from the conference report. Government-owned broadband networks. This was an interesting one. So again, this wasn't even a standalone bill before it was inserted into the budget in the Senate process. This would essentially eliminate the ability for municipalities and different kind of local government jurisdictions from becoming broadband providers. So broadband has obviously, as we've seen in the last 16 months, become the biggest way for folks to connect to healthcare, to school, to applying for those benefits if needed, to stay connected to friends and family over the last 16 months. And we do know that over 1 million Ohioans do not have access to broadband, either it be through hardwire, through the actual infrastructure, not reaching their homes, not reaching their communities, or through lack of resources and the affordability measures. So unfortunately, fortunately, we have seen a number of municipalities throughout the state of Ohio kind of become that broadband provider, making sure that their communities, their residents, those businesses have a choice for quality, kind of high-speed broadband connections. And also they provide a bit of competition for your typical internet service providers. This provision that was slipped into the budget would derail those efforts and make it exceedingly difficult for those municipalities to step up and provide that service. So we would like to see that completely removed from the conference report as well. Valuation of subsidized residential rental property. So this is a change in the Department of Taxation that really changes any kind of tax relief or tax incentives that would provide for additional affordable housing opportunities and current affordable housing kind of structures and communities in the state of Ohio. So really threatens any incentives or kind of really the structures that exist for affordable housing in Ohio. We want to make sure that that is removed completely and make sure that those opportunities continue to exist and are strong for folks to invest in affordable housing and make sure that it's available for those who need it across the state. Medical practitioner conscience clause. This is another interesting provision we saw slipped in to the final version of the Senate's passed budget. This would allow medical providers to refuse care for patients based on some kind of social or moral religious belief or disagreement with their patients' social, moral, or religious beliefs. So this is something that, again, we found to be just really not the right direction for Ohio to head in. We want to make sure that care for those who need it is available and exists, and that this does not come to fruition in the state. I mean, there's really no other way for us to describe it here. It's discrimination, and we don't want that to become practice here in Ohio. So we would like that to be removed as well as this is a last provision has to do with folks with disabilities in Ohio, and they're certainly right now their state appointed Disability Rights Ohio. So right now, they make sure that folks with disabilities kind of have the services they need in school, have access to legal rights and different services like that. This would be just an interesting change that affects a lot of families, a lot of providers within that space, and us, along with our partners at Disability Rights Ohio, would just like to see that removed from the budget. Maybe brought up at a different time, but certainly deserves a stronger and longer conversation than something that is added last minute into the budget. So those are the big major provisions that AOF has had our eyes on. We've been actively advocating for either for or against within the conference process with those conferees. We know that those conferees offices, my goodness, lots of phone calls, lots of emails, lots of advocacy on parts of everyone, I'm sure, joining us today, as well as our different stakeholders across the state. So we want to take a quick minute and thank you so much for your advocacy. The push still continues. We still have a bit of a ways to go in this fight. And then the very last thing that we wanted to bring to your attention one more time, the Senate did completely remove that $100 million investment, excuse me, $190 million investment that the governor and the House included in their versions of the budget. So we would like to see that put back in. That was a really strong kind of step in the right direction. We know that to connect everyone in Ohio, it's actually closer to a $2 billion investment from the state to make sure everyone has is connected to broadband everywhere, you know, from each corner of our state. So $100 million is a drop in the bucket, but it is a significant investment for the moment to make sure that we get more folks connected. So we want to make sure that those dollars were reinserted. And then we know a number of our partners as well. The school funding formula has been quite a big part of the state budget conversation in Ohio. I remember, I mean, this is my 10th budget, well, 10th budget, I just aged myself, my 5th budget in kind of the state advocacy world, and the school funding formula is always a topic or a big topic of conversation when we think about funding, when we think about allocating our state's resources. We know that a number of our partners are advocating for the House passed version of the school funding formula to remain in the final version of the budget. So we certainly support our friends in that effort. We want to make sure that kids and teachers have what they need for that fair and equitable education in all parts of our state. So those are the major issues that will be considered for conference committee. Again, it may be happening right now, it may just be kicking off, but we won't keep you too much longer before we talk about what's next. So after conference committee concludes, hopefully today, again, fingers crossed, we'll see, the House and Senate will vote to approve the conference report and then send it to Governor DeWine. We do expect both the House and the Senate to approve the report by just a simple majority vote. We don't expect any additional amendments at that time. Really, the conference report we see passed out of conference will be what is sent to the governor. So what's next after that? Then Governor DeWine has to until June 30th. And if you mark your calendars here, that's a short 2 days to decide what he wants to keep in that conference report, what he wants to keep in the budget, or what he would like to line item veto. So because this is an appropriations document, the governor has the ability to take his red pen and strike whatever is in the document, really at his discretion. So that is how the line item veto works. And then the last budget, just a quick reminder, Governor DeWine vetoed 25 provisions. So he'll produce what is called a veto message. And he will kind of how we had in the previous slides, talk about each provision that he's decided to veto and give his reasoning why. So hopefully we will see that veto message June 30th, and that the process doesn't continue to kind of drag. I will say the last budget, I believe we went 17 days over the constitutional deadline for the governor's final signature. We're on better track, I would say, this time around. So after we do see that conference report produced today, all advocacy efforts, if the issue that you've been fighting for stays in the budget and you don't want it to, or you see, or yes, sorry, apologies. That is really, if it is in the budget and you would like it gone, the next option for advocacy would be a veto request by the governor. So the House and Senate are kind of out of the equation after today or after the conference report is finished, and all advocacy should be directed to Governor DeWine. This would include emails, this would be phone calls, this would be social media tweets. Make sure you tag the governor in any kind of social media opportunities that you put together. And really the final decision comes with him and his administration. I believe some of the governor's priorities will prevail. He's always been a major advocate of children's health, making sure families can stay together. It'll be very interesting to see kind of what his veto messages relay and really what his priorities are moving forward for the rest of his term in office. Again, the governor is up in 2022, so just about a year away from his next election. After he uses his veto pen, we'll see what he vetoes. And then there's always a possibility of a veto override. So this is something that is not common, but can happen when it comes to these appropriations bills, when it comes to really any bill. The General Assembly has the ability with a 3/5 vote of each chamber to override a governor's veto and enact a piece of that budget bill or a piece of a law back into code. So the majority votes are there. We've already seen one veto override pertaining to Senate Bill 22, talking about the executive health orders and such, and the decisions the governor made pertaining to executive orders and COVID response and relief and different rules that were in place during that time. So we have seen a veto override already this General Assembly. We could see one again. Again, anything could happen in the next few days, few weeks here as the budget process does wrap up. So friends, that is where things stand today. I wanted to share, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to add them in the chat. I know my policy assistant, Sarah, will make sure I don't miss anything as we continue. I don't want to keep you too much longer because I believe conference could be starting at this very moment. And if you would like to make sure you tune in, it'll be on live at the ohiochannel.org is where I know I'll be watching, and I'll be following along again with that document that was included again in the chat and then in those slides before. I'm so happy to answer any questions that come in through the chat, come in through the Q&A to the best of my ability. If I don't know, I'd be happy to email them directly to you after we conclude. But that is where we stand today, folks. We're in the final few days here of this budget process. Should be really, really interesting. I also encourage you to keep up with us on social media. We'll let you know kind of when conference does begin, when we expect that conference or that veto message to come out from Governor DeWine, and really kind of try to clue you in on any other information that we've been hearing here. All right, I see we got a big question here in the chat. What are the avenues that the General Assembly and the governor are accountable to passing a balanced budget within the time frame required by the state constitution? In other words, what recourse the citizens have when the state fails to meet these obligations? It's some kind of lawsuit, correct? You would be correct, other than the 17-day delay last time has ever come up as challenged in Ohio. So not to my knowledge has there been any kind of lawsuit that has gotten anywhere within kind of the state or the citizens' recourse to make sure that the budget is passed on time. So when they don't meet the constitutional deadline, the governor, the House and Senate will pass kind of an extension budget. They'll give themselves a date. It's usually probably just a couple weeks to kind of keep state revenue levels at the same kind of as passed in the previous fiscal year. So that would have been, if we continue through this process, which I don't believe, but the state revenue levels would continue for an additional 2 weeks at fiscal year 2021 levels. And then those would kind of, LSC would have to kind of change their accounting for that in the state coffers for these, however long they go over, 17 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But I have not experienced kind of a much longer push than that. I would assume that citizens would certainly want to have kind of a recourse, but especially if it goes too much longer. But I have not seen a lawsuit that has come to fruition or really kind of come to higher standing in Ohio because of that delay. Would be an interesting situation though. Stay tuned. Let's see. Looking at our chat here from Wendy. I hope this is our friend Wendy. They have about a week before they have to turn into a continuing resolution. So yes, so it sounds like there's a little bit of additional wiggle room for our General Assembly and our governor before they have to pass again those kind of continuing resolution, continuing budget at those previous fiscal year levels. So tiny bit of wiggle room. Again, I don't think that will be the situation here with this budget, but again, we have seen it in the past. All right, a couple other questions here about budget impacts for TARDA, the public transit system for Toledo. So I'm a Toledo native, so go Toledo. So unfortunately, I will tell you, and I'm just gonna be very honest, I am not quite sure how the specific provisions pertaining to TARDA are in the budget. I've been very kind of hyper-focused on the issues that we talked about today, but happy to take a quick look and get back to the question asker on that one. Yeah, apologies. It's, Health and Human Services is a very, very big field. And I've been, again, focused on really those provisions of the 3,000 page document, but happy to look further into it and kind of see where those stand. All right, folks, give maybe about 2 more minutes for additional questions before we sign off today. I believe the conference should be starting. Again, we've had so many false starts the past few days. I know there's been there's been a lot of action, my goodness, really on bills other than the budget the past few days in the state legislature, a lot of emotions, a lot of impassioned floor speeches, a lot of kind of quick amendments into different bills the past week. So it's been interesting to watch, interesting to kind of see these plays made on the state level. All right. Oh, quick answer to the individuals asking about the TARDA provision here from, again, our friend Wendy, and thank you so much, Wendy. So it looks like State Representative Derek Marin from the Toledo area, I know he represents the area where I grew up, would cut the sales tax ceiling in a separate bill. If that is included in the budget, would not be good news for TARDA, for, again, the revenue projections and those possibilities in the area. So we'll keep our eye on it. Looks like some folks within the AOF network have their eye on it as well. So I appreciate that very much. Looks like that's also a separate bill that we're keeping our eye on. All right, everyone. Well, I don't want to take you keep you too much longer here. Make sure you keep an eye on our social media to let you know when conference does begin in the state. Make sure you have that link ready to look at that conference document, that comparison document, to go through and see which version gets into that conference report. We'll let you know about additional opportunities for advocacy, again, directed at Governor DeWine as soon as that conference report is passed. And we will be back within probably by mid-July to talk about how everything really played out over the last few days. We'll do a quick budget review. We'll talk about all the issues that we were keeping our eye on over the past 6 months. Again, I want to thank you so much for your advocacy, for your time this morning. Should be an exciting rest of the day, exciting few days here in state budget world. Happy to answer any questions that you have afterwards. And thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk again soon.